My topic is on non-interventionism. So, what is non-interventionism? Well, it includes free trade, diplomacy, freedom of travel, and yes, a strong national defense. It does not include foreign aid. It does not include alliances in peacetime. It does not include taking out dictators and propping up other dictators. This, people like to call non-interventionism isolationism. And knowing the two, I don't see how they equate them, because their implementation is so very different and the outcomes are so very different. Isolationism is actually kind of more of a consequence of intervention itself rather than just a policy. It includes sanctions and embargoes, cutting off trade, which is something that non-interventionists are not for. So, what we're doing now, when we go around telling people how they should live, and we overthrow elected officials and prop up our own dictators that we choose, they tend to not like that, and so it kind of isolates us. And this idea of non-interventionism is not a new idea. Our founding fathers actually preferred it as their foreign policy. Take Thomas Jefferson, for example, with his first inaugural address. He said, "Peace, commerce, and honest friendship with all nations, entangling alliances with none." Or George Washington with his farewell address, "Harmony and liberal intercourse with all nations are recommended by policy, humanity, and interest. But even our commercial policy should hold an equal and impartial hand, neither seeking nor granting exclusive favors or preferences." Now, to me, that sounds like he's promoting free trade, which is one of the key aspects of non-interventionism. We want to promote free trade, free markets, because that's what helps other countries become free themselves, instead of just going around bombing them into democracy. So he says to deal with people equally and impartially. That sounds like he would be against foreign aid. Because if we give aid to one country and not to the other, it might cause some blowback. And actually, that I would say it's wise advice, because that kind of policy actually provoked Pearl Harbor. We cut off Japan, but we still aided the Allies. And then look what we got. So let's continue with his farewell address. And he says, "Why? By interweaving our destiny with that of any part of Europe, entangle our peace and prosperity in the toils of European ambition, rivalship, interest, humor, or caprice." So he's saying here that if we form alliances, particularly during peacetime, because in his farewell address he says that we should have temporary alliances in extreme emergencies. So he's saying that if we form these alliances, we're depending on that country or that regime for our own success. And just to give you an example, you guys may have heard of this country, Iran, just a little bit. Back before 1953, Great Britain had controlled their oil, and Iran threatened in 1953 to nationalize their oil. So we decided to overthrow Mossadegh, who was a widely elected official. And we put in our own guy, the Shah, who was an oppressive dictator. And by 1979, you have the Iranian Revolution, where people rise up. They see that we were supporting this guy, and now you have all this American hatred. And then that results in the Iranian hostage situation. So as you can see here, when we were supporting the Shah, when we knocked out their own elected official, put in our guy, we were intertwining our destiny with the destiny of that regime. So if they failed, that meant that we would fail, and as you can see, we paid for that. But moving on, we had John Quincy Adams. Many of you may have heard his quote about how America shouldn't go around trying to find monsters to destroy. Well, in that same text, he talks about if you take up others' banners, which I assume would be alliances, the fundamental maxims of her, being America, policy would insensibly change from liberty to force. She might become the dictatress of the world. She would be no longer the ruler of her own spirit. So just like fiscal conservatives today, when they talk about domestic policy, we refuse to give the government more power because we know that they'll just use them as avenues of corruption. And as you can see today, what we've been doing abroad, maybe they started out as humanitarian missions, but now we're bombing Yemen, Pakistan, Libya, Iraq, Afghanistan, all these countries. We're militarizing all these places, and we're disrespecting them. We have no accountability for our actions over there. So just like John Quincy Adams predicted, which I think these people are a lot smarter than some people give them credit for, we lose our spirit, the spirit of freedom and prosperity that this country was founded on when we do that. So to take a look, after 9/11, what happened? We had the Patriot Act. Goodbye, Fourth Amendment. We have the National Defense Authorization Act, which does say in Section 1021, you can look it up, that if you're suspected to be a member, I see you laughing, if you're suspected to be a member or of Al-Qaeda, or you helped carry out the actions of 9/11, if you're suspected, you can be detained without a trial. It says without a trial, until hostilities end, which we know have lasted for 10 years. There's no goal. We don't know when it's going to end. And U.S. citizens are not exempted in this section. We have secret prisons like Guantanamo with torture and people who were detained without trial. And actually, when the Supreme Court ruled that they were entitled to a trial, we were told that these people were the worst of the worst, but the majority of them were let out because they didn't have enough evidence to keep them in there. And we also have a president now who's going around with his drone assassinating U.S. citizens without trial. Who authorizes that? It shouldn't be the president. But we live in different times, right? That doesn't apply now. But what's the point of having principles if they're not timeless, if they can't be applicable in any given situation? Should we just throw away the Constitution itself because it was written in the 18th century and it's outdated? Should we just write a whole new Constitution now? I don't think anybody would agree with that. And as I said before, non-interventionism is not a new concept. Yes, Ron Paul's talking about it now, and it seems like it's new, but it's not. In fact, the old right were non-interventionists. Some key figures in the founding of American conservatism were non-interventionists. They believed that big government was no more honest or competent with foreign policy as they were with domestic policy. It's the same people, why shouldn't they have the same incentives? So, let's take a look at Felix Morley. He was one of the founders of Human Events, the oldest conservative weekly in America. He said in 1957, which seems still relevant today, "We are trying to make a federal republic do an imperial job without honestly confronting the fact that our traditional institutions are specifically designed to prevent centralization of power." Or Russell Kirk, who is one of the chief founders of American conservatism, he said in 1991 at the Heritage Foundation, Presidents Woodrow Wilson, Franklin Roosevelt, and Lyndon Johnson were enthusiasts for American domination of the world. Now, George H.W. Bush appears to be emulating those eminent Democrats. In general, Republicans throughout the 20th century have been advocates of prudence and restraint in the conduct of foreign affairs. And as for Wars for Democracy, which was the same war propaganda before 9/11, he said, "Are we to saturation bomb most of Africa and Asia into righteousness, freedom, and democracy? And having accomplished that, however would we ensure persons yet more unrighteous might not rise up instead of the ogres we swept away. And if you think about it, we put the Shah in power, who was an oppressive dictator. We supported Bashar at one point, we supported Gaddafi and Saddam at one point. So, even Bush Jr. ran and won as a non-interventionist. In 2000, the debate with Gore, he said, "I'm not so sure the role of the United States is to go around the world and say, this is the way it's got to be. I think one way for us to end up being viewed as the ugly American is for us to go around the world saying, we do it this way, so should you." And I'll allow you to laugh right now. He also rejected nation building. That's funny too, right? So he said, Somalia started off as a humanitarian mission, sound familiar? And changed into a nation building mission. And that's where the mission went wrong. But wait, didn't 9/11 change things? Right? 9/11 changed everything.
According to our first speaker tonight.
Good thing he's not here. I know.